Oops, I turned off all the sounds with the wrong buttons, but the hotkeys are fixed, and there we go. So our predictions still come true, sadly, no matter what, and we do have a ZvZ on our hands. Spawning on the top right side of Dusk Towers, it's going to be the blue Zerg, Euronics Gaming's FireCake.
In the bottom left, as the pink Zerg, he is Reynor.
Of course, playing for... Oh, no, they changed the name. It's not Team Extreme Supremacy anymore. It's something weird, like Team True Esports. That's what it is.
Team True. So True Esports.
Something like that. Yeah. I can't remember the exact name. But Reynor, I know we cast just the other day, and we were talking about how, he's a young kid. He's looking good. He played a pretty fantastic series, still lost. I don't know how he'll measure up here versus FireCake, but this is not someone to be, despite his age, not someone to underestimate. That's for certain.
Oh, no. Reynor did beat... Well, actually, he was beaten by sort of course... That whole thing happened. He beat Prime Lot before that, and then second African SV2. So Prime Lot not bad. Not Zerg also. So ZvZ is a completely different matchup. But 2-1ing against sort of does mean that Reynor is at least on form somewhat for his ZvZ. FireCake, not sure what he's going to look like here. Dust Tower is a very big map. A lot of things can actually be surprises sometimes. Actually, an oddly large amount of early pools. But we did end up seeing what was a very long ZvZ on this map between Penguin and Pig. I don't think we're going to see that between these two. I don't know about that. I'm actually anticipating, like, Roach Wars here.
Well, I mean, that's... in fairness, so that's ZvZ a lot of the time, so it's like saying, I expect to see an Overlord made at some point.
Well, so I guess more importantly, I don't think one of them's going to go for mutas.
That's,
like
yeah,
Penguin does 100% of the time.
Yeah, a good reference point to the previous ZvZ cast. But as far as this goes for FireCake, I guess we have cast a lot of him recently in the Cyber Race Wars, and I'd say about a year ago, every time we saw FireCake, it was pretty precisely either all-ins or swarm hosts. There was no in-between, and it was pretty gross and disgusting. But lately, he has been taking on the macro game a little bit more, I guess, seriously, and we've been seeing a little bit more Ravager play out of him. But, oh, a Bailey Nest comes down. This kind of looks more defensive than anything else.
Yeah. It seems to be usually that case on Dusk Towers. They might make a handful of lings to go poke and prod, but I don't know if they're any of them are looking towards that all lane. They both get third bases, so that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to drone it. Could be just a larva farm, a backup, whatever you want to call it. Larva farm. Ew.
I guess that's kind of gross to think about, but that is what it is. I grow worms for a living.
I go grubs. That's why my name is Zombie Grub.
So would it be dead or undead worms that you... Or live
Zombie worms. They're dead. I'm a very bad farmer. That's the problem.
But if you're a zombie grub farmer, then you're actually a great farmer.
That's true. If my job is to farm dead grubs, then I'm magical.
I feel like that'd be easy, though. You'd be like, oops,
right?
Did I neglect them? Looks like I'm doing a great job.
A+ Zombie Grub.
Okay, FireCake is going to actually just barely get past these banelings to scout. Nope, just kidding. There's a ton of links from Reynor waiting to intercept, so not going to see anything just yet. Economically speaking, this game, it's looking a little bit better for FireCake. He does have more drones. It makes more sense. But for Reynor, what looked like was going to be an attack ends up just being a bit of, I don't know, pressure, and he just drones behind it. This isn't bad if he could get a knockdown on that third, but with so many banelings in play, it's unlikely. Unlike the previous series 2, or the previous series that we've been casting, this is actually the first one, I think, where it's same latency, EU versus EU.
Yeah, they did go over to the European server. Makes a lot of sense. We do have Reynor with the much later layer. He's going for a +1 instead. Whereas FireCake, hey, he's got a layer, and it is going to actually be Spire. If anyone is going to go Spire, I wasn't actually convinced it was going to be FireCake. I didn't know much more about Reynor, but FireCake going for that Spire first, too. Like, not Roaches in a Spire, but actually trying to, sneak it in here. Reynor, unfortunately, will not get eyes on that, and as such will not have any preparation to stopping it. And he's actually completely focused on these Ling Wars, which are not doing so well for him. Okay, there's the Roach War.
That was a really good baneling hit out of FireCake as well. Like, that just took out a huge chunk of the Lings.
Yeah. The Roach Warren is again at that time, especially on Dusk Towers, where it's too late to really be pushing forward with it. It would have +1 if he did push with it, but this is something that the mutas would already be out, and he would be better off Nidus worming if that was even an option. But remember that he never got that lair, and this, like, he has to do the attack. Well, I guess he can actually just be defensive. If he is going to attack, it would have to be immediately as the Roach Warren finished up with +1, but he's going to have to now just concede to being defensive, getting spore crawlers, trying to, you know, let the mutas not do that much damage.
Oh, nice kill on the queen. The problem is, though, he never got back. I'm going to break the graphs. He still never got back here. He still never scouted. And the worst part about not scouting the Spire is also not scouting the main, to know that there's not a Roach Warden, to decisively know it's not Hydras, to know it's not Roaches. Nice bailing hit out of Reynor, by the way. Cleans up FireCake, slings Reynor across the map. But, yeah, the Spire, he's going for a Carapace. He's expecting there to be mutas, I guess, but that's not going to be the case.
What's kind of funny is that since they both had the same exact units and, like, the same exact base, like 3 base, saturated, Lings attacking each other with Banelings, is that to both of them, that could have looked like what they were both doing. Reynor could have been like, oh, you're going Roaches, right? Because that's what I'm doing. And FireCake could have been like, oh, then you're going mutas, right? Because that's what I'm doing. And they both seem to have actually guessed that, but they're in fact going for Roach versus muta. So the +1 Carapace doesn't really help out mutas in this situation. It's an upgrade, so it's not like bad to have, but you usually would want the +1 flyer attack, that is.
Reynor a little bit supply blocked with that getting picked off, and again, not super surprised, not totally screwed by this, but he does have spore crawlers down and in pretty decent positions, and a lot of them. So the alert to this was immediately responded to, and he's covered. Kind of like the same situation with Pig, though. You're investing in 7 spore crawlers. That's a lot of minerals. Downside is, like, obviously the cost. The upside is, well, you're not really going anywhere anyways anytime soon, so having a good defensive setup is going to be worth it. I got a brand new sub coming in, though. Death Note BDGR. Thank you for the subscription.
Bigger. And so this is where I guess we have to decide what to see if FireCake's going to just entirely invest into mutas. He gets a Baneling Nest, +1 flyer attacks. Actually, he canceled the Carapace. So, okay, he's still investing into the mutas, though, is the end result, right? And he's getting the Banelings for those Lings. The Infestation Pit might be for Hive. But he's still, like, and Reynor sees this, too. Like, that is more than just 8 or 10 mutas, and they're actually taking on the Hydra list.
Yeah, and this is that problem we were talking about earlier. Hydras don't have a lot of health. Before you've got enough of them, they're coming in like, okay, he just killed how many Hydras? 17? But it wasn't 17 at once. There was 17, 2 or 3 at a time. So of course he was going to take that fight. And that's the problem. So right now, Reynor has not got like a terrible setup to deal with the mutas. It's just the fact that he's getting caught on his production cycles. The only way this gets worse is, of course, if you have Infestors get caught. Hydra's not as expensive, but still very expensive units nonetheless. +2 finishes up soon, but once more, unless you can actually group all these Hydras together, it's going to be very difficult to take on this Mutaflock. And for this, you know, FireCake's not sticking purely on mutas. He's got Banelings speed on the way. He's going to have that flood of Lings on the ground. He's moving towards Hive Tech. So I do feel a little bit... This is kind of like watching Penguin versus Pig again, you know? It's very one-sided towards the Muta player because they are being controlled really well.
And definitely not what I was expecting from these two. But a lot of people do have trouble with mutas. You know, it's a style that if you don't kill them with the Roach attack, which is what we see from a lot of the games where people try and go mutas, then the mutas can snowball,
GG.
And they officially have. So, GG.
Game 1 gonna go to FireCake.